We were talking about, briefly, we were talking about this, that it seems like there's a common denominator for every millionaire or successful person that we know, that they always had something dark happen or multiple dark things happen. And something that drives them, whether it's the greatest athletes in the world, the biggest, billionaires in the world, there was something that defined them early on, or some things that defined them. I'm curious, what were the 3 moments when you were a kid that really defined you to be this driven, hungry person, to originally just make sure that money wasn't an issue.
Yeah, really great question.
And want to continue to grow and reach $1 billion in sales in all your businesses and impact the world, because that doesn't happen just if you have a happy, normal life. Yeah. In my opinion.
And you know what? A really great question, Louis. And here's what happens over time. Some of that goes away and you craft a new story.
Of course.
I did it because I wanted to change the world. I'd lie if I said that was true.
But there's usually some defining moments that usually happen when you're 5, 10, 7, whatever.
I know some of them. One is my mom did work. This sounds like an infomercial story. My mom worked 3 jobs. She was a hairstylist. She cleaned houses and then cleaned up after a painter, right? And she did those 3 jobs. And I asked her to this day, she made about $90 a week. Because she barely got out of high school. She had dyslexia that wasn't diagnosed. My mom's a beautiful woman inside and out, unbelievably gorgeous, heart, soul, all of it. But she always felt dumb. Like she failed every grade. She quit school in the 11th grade because she was so embarrassed to go. And so she kept that stigma inside. And I remember being really young and watching her come home from work tired as hell at 7 o'clock. My parents split when I was 3. So we were living in a trailer park. My fiance's here. I took her to the trailer park that I was living in. And we'd come home, latchkey kids, when we were like 6 and 8. Because, my grandma would come a lot. My grandmother was amazing. So she was there a lot too. So we weren't
neglected. You were just with your mom. Dad, was your dad in the picture? Or no?
Every other weekend.
Okay, you saw him. But it wasn't,
saw him. And just watching her, I can remember, Luce, I don't want to exaggerate, but I moved in with my dad when I was 12. I think I look back at that. I was like 7 or 8. And I remember saying, there's no way I'm letting this happen to my mom. I am doing this.
Wow.
My mom was my original, I'm taking care of her. There's no way I'm letting her work this hard. And it broke my heart. Like, if I look back, my heart was broken all the time watching her come home. And she wouldn't complain, but she was just tired, So I remember thinking, I'm getting wealthy to solve that problem. I mean, young.
At 7, 8, 9
7, 8 years old. I mean, I had an Uncle Larry who was very, he went to college. His kids went to college. And I just didn't, from 9 years old, 10 years old, that's just the path I knew I wasn't going to college. I didn't think I was that smart. My family didn't have money. I'm like, I just wanted money out of the way. Like, it wasn't like, today's world has changed a little bit with social media, right? There was no such thing as the internet when I was that age, right? This is 40-something years ago, right? And I think money has gotten a bad rep a little bit more because I didn't have guys,
photos
flashing
of
the money.
everything.
Yeah, like driving the Lambo or in the private jet, or the look at me and the Rolexes,
champagne,
so the champagne pop in the nightclubs. I didn't even know that world existed, Louis. We didn't have money. I lived in a blue collar town. Nobody I knew had money, so it wasn't like I was saying I'm getting rich because I want to roll.
You just wanted to help your mom stop suffering.
I wanted my mom not suffer. And man, that's him. And the one thing I love telling people, and again, you may have heard this, but maybe today is the first time you actually hear it. It's okay to be in pain over something. Just don't ignore it. The biggest plight we all do to ourselves, I think, the biggest negativity we do to ourselves is we avoid the things that bother us. What I believe is let that pain sink in. If you get moving to start your own business, to scale the company you have, to finally quit the job that's draining you, if it's because of pain, use it. Like, so many times when people listen to you and all the amazing people you've brought to the world, Louis, I love what you do, man. I mean it. I'm really proud to be your friend.
Thank you.
I love watching what you do. I love watching you grow. So many times we'll get into personal growth and we start thinking compelling future. I got to look ahead. I got to stay positive. I got to be the man. I got to be this woman that keeps it in control. And everything's good. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm alive. Like sometimes that's just bullshit. Sometimes life sucks. And what I realized, what moved me as a kid had nothing to do with a compelling future. It had nothing to do with aspirational quotes. It had nothing to do with meditation. It had to do with I hated where the freak my life was. I hated watching my mom, and I was fixing that shit. And it bugged me every day. Like, it bugged me. And
until you were like 16, 18.
yeah, and like I was hustling. I 13, 14 years old, I used to go around the neighborhood and clean out people's garages. And then I'd take all that and I'd do a massive garage sale.
Wow. That's cool.
So 13, and my gram was the bomb. My gram would drive around, have her trunk up. I'd clean out the garages. It mostly was her friends, right? So I'd clean up like, oh, that's garbage, that's garbage, that's garbage. I'm like, you want to sell that? Like, oh, I can't give that away. Like, I'll sell it. I'll give you half. Like, okay, this is before eBay. It didn't exist. That was eBay on my gram's front yard, right? So she lived a little bit off the highway. I'd put a sign, yard sale. Man, I'd be out there on Saturdays learning how to sell. Because people had no mercy. I was a young kid doing it. They'd still come $5. I'll give you 2. It's like, make it 4, you know? So I was negotiating that. And then at 16, I started a firewood company. I cut trees down, split it, stacked it in the back of a truck, and delivered it for $90 a cord.
Wow. Are you chopping it with the
chainsaw and a log splitter? And,
wow.
Yeah.
Not manual. Like
No. It wasn't, what do they call it? Like,
just an axe.
Yeah, it wasn't the axe. I wasn't big enough for that.
Exactly.
So that one motivator was my mom. I didn't have money in school. It's like when I moved in with my dad, I was 12 years old. My dad, my dad was the youngest of 12 and was physically and sexually abused his whole childhood.
Yeah.
And back in those days, there was no therapy, talk therapy, not going to a counselor.
Just suck it up.
Have the ability to talk like you and I talked when we were jogging.
Yeah.
Men back then didn't talk. My dad's 83 now. He wouldn't go to his best bud. Oh my God. When I was 5 years old or 7, I was molested by my cousin. No one knew. In the old days, they'd be like, get away from,
Yeah.
So he didn't talk about it. So what he had this built up anger his whole life, and no one was able to take advantage of him. Like if the waiter was rude to him, he'd be fist fighting on the floor with the waiter, right? If we were driving in traffic one day and the flag guy during construction, he didn't wave to my dad. He was like looking at somebody else. My dad drove by and he goes, "Hey, asshole, didn't you see me?" And my dad literally jumped out and just beat him.
Oh my gosh.
That was my dad. He was infuriated with everybody because he was this young kid who got abused and no one was there to protect him, and nobody was doing that now. So he lived with that, and he's in an amazing place right now, and I love him dearly. But when I was 12 or 11, it was so bad that I was afraid. I was just afraid. Like I was nervous for him, and I wanted to help him. So at 11, I left my mom and moved in with him. Mm-hmm. And when I moved in with him, this is, again, sounds like some infomercial story. I moved in the back. I literally had a house with no heat because he was remodeling and he ran out of money. And he was working on it. So we had to literally drag a bed into a bathroom at night and plug in a little electric heater. And that wasn't forever, but it was for months. And when I moved in with him, I wasn't poor me. I didn't know anything different. It was fine. And I learned a lot by living with my dad, and the good, the bad. I learned how to negotiate and all those things. But some days I'd go to school without lunch money. And there was a point, and this is okay too. I'm not anywhere near that now, but there was a point where when I saw people with money, or like when everybody turns 16, a lot of kids in school, their parents got them a new car. Yeah. And
I remember
they had the new girl, the car, and then they'd get the cheerleader. And I'm the guy going home every day working with my dad. I worked every single day. I worked on cars. I worked on construction. And like, I remember being like, you know what? You can't hear me now, but you'll hear me someday.
Wow.
In my high school yearbook, literally my quote is like, I might be silent now, but someday, like, it'll be impossible not to hear me. Like, I got to get the quote. I just found my yearbook. Damn it, it's old. It's from 1986. Like, oh my God. But anyway, I want to read the quote, but it was something like, you don't hear me now, but someday you'll hear me roar. Wow. And I had this like internal chip. Like, I was really shy, polite to everybody. I called every one of my parents' friend, Mr. or Mrs. I still do when I see them. Like, I wasn't like, yo, I got this. It was more like, oh, yes. And I probably looked really, like, not weak. I don't even know the word. Like, just really like an introvert and shy and like, but I was hungry with a chip on my shoulder on the inside. Like, you don't hear me now. You got the car. You got the girl. I got you. Like, and so that was probably another one too, is envy.
Sure.
And I say like envy is toxic. It's completely toxic, but it's a good
driver.
It's a good driver,
Yeah.
right? Like, just think, like, you can't putt with a driver, but it's okay to smash a ball off the tee, right?
Yeah.
So if you need envy to smash the ball off the tee, then use it.